Hello, and welcome to the first installment of the WFG Masterclass with Mike Lipkin, the first of a three-part North American-wide series to help you supercharge your service to clients, team building, and coaching efforts through the virtual means. If you joined us for the Lead the Recovery webinar, I'm sure you're looking forward to what's in store for today. On this episode, Mr. Lipkin will be joined by a panel of accomplished WFG field leaders representing both the US and Canada, including Jamie Villalobos, Steve Holbrook, Dan Charlier, and Aldrin Destacamento to discuss practical tips on becoming a super virtual persuader. Afterwards, we'll use the end of the webcast to address your questions submitted live through the Q&A button found at the bottom of your screen. Please send us your questions throughout the broadcast. And also, you'll see on screen right now all of the social media handles of all the panelists that we'll have on today's episode. Please feel free to give them a shout out and tag them on social media. We know you're out there and we can't wait to see your posts. At the end of this episode, we'll also turn to Rick Williams, who will hear some words from about the business and about everything that we're going to be speaking to today. So to get us started, without further ado, Mr. Lipkin, are you there?
I am. I am just not only here, I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share my thoughts with all you extraordinary champions on this call today. So I hope that you are still inspired and empowered by our session, Lead the Recovery, just a few short weeks ago. If you recall, we spoke about the power of certainty, we spoke about charisma, and very importantly, we spoke about conditioning. So I hope you've had a couple great weeks, and I know that after today, you really are going to master the art of virtual persuasion. That's what we're going to be exploring. As you heard from Mark, I'm joined again by some real communication champions on this call, Jamie, Aldrin, Dan, and Steve. And we had such a great briefing session a couple days ago. And I got to tell you that I think I took as many tips away from our panelists as they may have taken from me. And in fact, right up front, I'll tell you that the last time we spoke, I saw that Steve Holbrook had this fantastic speaker or microphone in front of him. And so because he sounded so good, I went and invested in my own version of it. And I got to tell you, it's made a huge difference. So Steve, thank you very much. You know, every now and then the student becomes the teacher, then the teacher becomes the student. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite sayings of all time is when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So if you're on this call for the next hour and a bit, I want you to be a student. I want you to listen to everything, and I want you to have an open mind, because as someone once said to me, a mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. So today what we're going to be talking about is the 10 secrets to becoming a virtual persuader. As you can see, I've upped my game since our last session. All my slides are on the monitor behind me. And just so you know, you will be receiving a deck of all my slides. The reason why I've gone this route is that in a call like this, the conversation is more important than the graphics or the slides themselves. So I want to be able to fill your screen. I don't just want to be a thumbnail on the screen. Although I cannot see each one of the 5,000 people on this call, just so you know, I'm using my imagination to talk to every one of you, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, mind to mind, heart to heart. And so hopefully what you've seen already is that when you're in a virtual communication, you want to make it as similar as possible to a live communication. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So just to remind you, today is all about virtual communication, but on August 27, we have the next exciting masterclass, and that is on how can you become a magnet to great clients and great prospects? How can you serve them? How can you make sure that they see you as their absolute preferred service provider and partner? And then on September 10, we're going to be talking about how can you master teams? How do you become an outstanding recruiter? How do you build the best network around yourself so you magnetize, attract, and keep the best of the best? So let's get straight into the 10 secrets to becoming a super virtual persuader. And I want to begin just with a commentary on the word secret. You know, secret means information possessed by a few, desired by the many. So these are insights that are only accessible to those folks who are privileged and delighted enough to be part of this WFG Masterclass. And so you will leave here with some really powerful insights that I know will make a difference to your ability to communicate virtually with your folks. Now, I'll also tell you right up front that I'm using technology, all the technology that I can access. So you'll see the slides behind me. It's all controlled on my iPad through Apple TV. So right up front, I want to invite all of you to explore all the technological solutions at your disposal. We'll be talking about that during the course of this afternoon. And you want to be consulting with your clients and the folks you want to bring onto your team to help them navigate their way through the technical possibilities. Once you get through the first threshold, it becomes easier and easier. Okay, so let me just say to you that the definition of a super virtual persuader is someone that motivates others online to take action because they believe it will help them get what they want. So very importantly, this is the golden thread running through in the entire communication today, is your focus needs to be on helping the other person get what they want, not on you getting what you want. So right now, I will tell you that my only focus today is that you leave here with the insights that will help you become an outstanding virtual communicator. If that happens, I will achieve my goals. And so from the very beginning of the conversation, let people know what your mission is. Let people know what your outcome is. Let them know that you are there to be the conduit or the channel to their hopes, dreams, and desired outcomes. Now, I'm also going to shake things up a little bit today. So in our first session, I went through my keynote, and then we had the session with the panelists at the end of my delivery. Today, I'm going to be engaging in a dialogue with our panelists throughout the presentation. So you'll hear from me, you'll hear their commentary, and then we'll go to my next point. So let's go to the very first question that I'm going to put to the panelists on this call. And that is, it's been 5 months now that we've really been in lockdown, depending on where you are in North America. And I know that we've had openings, and then we've had closure, and then we have openings. We have a subsiding of the virus and then a spike of the virus. But one thing's for certain is that virtual communication is going to be the major channel. So I thought it would be really interesting for all of you to hear how some of your outstanding field leaders are in fact adapting to virtual communication. So since our first session, I have subscribed to Steve Holbrook's channel. I'm following him on Instagram, and not a day goes by where I don't get a message from Steve. I feel like I'm part of his team, I'm part of his family. I see what his sister's doing, I see what his brother-in-law is doing, I see what his kids are doing, and he lives the kind of life that the rest of us can only aspire to. So Steve, let me begin with you and just ask you in a nutshell, how have you adapted to virtual communication?
Well, I appreciate the introduction, Mike. I appreciate being on the call, and thanks for giving me a shout out. I should have linked my Amazon number. I could have got affiliate fee on that microphone, but just kidding, of course. Listen, it's been a quick adapt. I mean, 6 months ago we were doing things different, so we had to pivot. So what we did instantly is we made everything shorter. We made everything shorter. We trained more on asking questions and then listening. We train more on active listening, because when you take away, one important thing of the meeting, which is being in the room and feeling the energy, that's a big thing. So we keep it shorter. We train on asking more questions, and we get to the point a lot quicker. We set the intentions from the beginning, clearer than ever before. We shorten it up. We ask questions. We listen intently, and that's really how we've adapted as a team.
Beautiful. And so again, Steve, I'm taking a page out of your book by making this a dialogue from the get-go, not doing the usual tired approach of just a keynote followed by questions, followed by Q&A. So Steve, the power of listening. Listen first if you want to understand, and you can only deliver what the other person needs if you truly do understand them. So Steve, thank you for that. Jamie, let me ask you, how have you adapted to the world of virtual communication?
Well, same thing like Steve. We shortened all of our presentations. The BPM used to be an hour, sometimes longer, and now it's 30, 45 minutes. One-on-one presentations are about 30 minutes. But one thing that we had to do was, I quickly adapted. I had to learn everything about Zoom, all of its features, but we had to teach the team. And so we were doing classes nonstop of, teaching people how to get onto them, how to use the tools, because I think people were still thinking, well, we're going to get back to normal, and we're not. And even though we will do one-on-one stuff still, there's going to be a ton of virtual communication. So we had to teach them things like, in the one-on-one presentation, you got to be like you're at the kitchen table, kneecap to kneecap. And so if you're looking at them, you got to be looking at the camera, not looking at their picture, but look at the camera. And then, ask them a lot more questions, get a lot more engagement, make it more conversational. And also sometimes they can see you because you're in the camera, but you can't see the husband and wife. And so you can see maybe the husband, but only half of the wife. And so you got to ask them to maybe if they could shift their camera so that you can have a normal conversation with them. And so you got to teach every one of your teammates these little tips on how to make this virtual presentation more comfortable, because if you're more comfortable, it's obviously going to be a lot better experience and a lot better results with your client.
Beautiful. And just so everybody knows, obviously you'll get a recording of this call, but we're also going to take these nuggets that every one of us is sharing here today so that you can apply them. And by the way, Jamie, just so folks know, you are on vacation somewhere in Idaho. That is not Jamie's log cabin. That's not her cowboy hat behind her, but she wasn't going to miss this opportunity. So Jamie, maybe just share what's your experience in terms of wanting to do meetings when you're not always in your home office, you're not always in your comfort zone, but you still have to make that connection. Just give us your insights there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I love WFG, and home office knows if they ask me to do anything, they've done so much for me and my family, I'm going to say yes, but I'm not going to ruin the call either. So I got to make sure that even though we're in the middle of nowhere in the mountains in Idaho, and the kids are out on a horseback ride, and Sean, I don't know where he is, probably shooting clays or something. But I wanted to make sure that the internet was going to work well, and that I had a place to do it. And this is actually, there's only one spot in the entire, place that you can get good resort. It's the office of the manager. So they've locked all of the doors. I got here early. I got here about an hour ago. I tested the internet. I tested the lighting, and the lighting wasn't great. I actually have a couple lights up and stuff just to make it, work. And so you want to make sure before you do any type of appointment that you test it, that you see, is your lighting good? You don't want to have a dark face. You want to, again, like you're in their kitchen table, and that you're kneecap to kneecap with them. And so even if you're in an uncomfortable place, so there's going to be times that we're traveling. There's going to be, I don't want to, be at one of the kids' things and then have to wait all the way till I get back into my home office to do a presentation. I have my iPad in front of me, and I have a great camera on the newest iPad, and different lighting that I brought with me. And so you want to be able to be mobile. This business has now become recession-proof and pandemic-proof and 100% mobile, that we can have, a list to call, our cell phone and our iPad, and we can build our business from anywhere. And even in the middle of nowhere in Idaho, and just kind of step away for a second in a little log cabin.
That is so good. So look, the other key thought that I want to take away from what Jamie has said is practice being proficient, not perfect. And that's one of the key secrets that we're going to share with you. So, it doesn't have to be impeccable. It doesn't have to be immaculate. You have to control what you can and then go with whatever you have, rather have the conversation than not have the conversation. So, Jamie, thank you very much. And Aldrin, I know that in many ways you are a master of this technology. So, Aldrin, share with us how you've adapted to virtual communication. Aldrin, you've got your mute on, I think. There we go. Perfect. Okay, there we go.
Awesome. Thank you for the question, Mike. I think the biggest adaptation that we need to take in this part of it here is first on the mindset side, that this isn't going to go away anytime soon. I feel that if our mindset into adapting into this virtual world is we're waiting for its expiry, we aren't able to actually grow into this particular role and make the most of what we have here. And just to piggyback on what Jamie as well as Steve mentioned, it's really just shortening the message I feel that if someone is taking the time out of their day to jump on a Zoom call, I feel that they're already interested so that we can get right into the point. And when we talk about asking questions, it's something I've trained our team on in a long time, is that amateur closers practice what to say, but the world-class closers practice what to ask. Because there's only two types of questions that we can get in the virtual world now. The first question we need to ask is something that will recapture the attention of the speaker or the listener. So things like, does that make sense, will allow us to recapture their attention all over again. And the second type of question we need to learn to ask is valuable data that's precious, that's critical to influencing the result that we want to get. So that's how we've adapted in a short time.
So good. And, you know, my version of this, and we're going to get into this in depth, is that whoever's asking the question is really controlling the conversation. Someone said to me, a great question is like a spotlight that shines deep into the client's or the prospect's mind. So, Aldrin, thank you very much for that. So let's get into the very first secret to becoming a super virtual persuader. And you'll see it's all about pre-inspiring yourself. So you want to be really amped up, you want to be stoked before you get in front of the camera. Now, we've all got different styles, even on this call. So Aldrin's got a different style to Steve, who's got a different style to Jamie. And I'm not sure if Dan is on the call yet. Mark, how do I know if Dan's on the call or not? I cannot see him on my screen. Is he on the call?
Dan is on.
Okay,
Yes, yeah,
excellent.
he is on.
Excellent. All right, so great. So I'm going to ask Dan a question in a moment, but we've all got different styles, but you are going to have a great presentation or not have a great presentation by what you do before the webcam starts rolling. So this really is a version of what Jamie shared, and that is you want to be in the zone when that conversation starts. You don't want to warm up in the conversation, because that first 5 or 10 minutes is crucial, just as the last 5 or 10 minutes is crucial. You want to start effectively, and then you want to finish strong. So, you know, some of the things that I do before I get in front of you is I'll move around. I want to make sure that I've got great oxygen circulating through my body. I want to breathe right. So right now, let's do a little exercise. I want you, if you're standing, stand up straight. If you sit up straight, and just take a deep breath. So breathe in for 5 seconds. And then breathe out for 5. Have you noticed just taking a deep breath just relaxes you and centers you? And then I want to chant. So the chant that I give myself is I say, oh Lord, grant me the power of powerful speech. So that's just my little chant. Grant me the power of powerful speech. So I'm endeavoring to channel all my learning and inspiration into this conversation right now. Number two, I want to read something inspiring. I want to watch something inspiring. So my other great debt to WFG is I've become a great fan and follower of Ed Milet, and I watch a lot of Ed. I just think he's phenomenal. I love his message. I love his style. And as you can see, I'm trying to look like Ed. And then as we heard, very importantly from Aldrin, is to listen. So I want to listen to great folks. And then finally, you want to visualize your impact. I want to see each one of the 5,000 people on this call really being inspired. I want to see you smiling. I want to see you even applauding wherever you are. And that's the power of imagination. It's the creation of images in your mind that for you are real. And by the way, if I can see 5,000 people smiling and applauding and relishing these insights, then that's how I feel, and that's the energy that you experience. So look, let's go to the next question. And I'd like to put this question to Dan. So first of all, Dan, welcome. Great to see you again. Dan and I spoke just a couple of days ago. I feel like you're all part of my family now. So Dan, just share with us, how do you get ready for important video calls?
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate all the comments, Mike. But I think all of us as leaders, that we actually understand that it's extremely important for you to manage your state, especially when you're at home and when we have a virtual format system. So I think routine is extremely important, your morning routine, your daily routine, and you being conscious of your state at any given time. As I was listening to you this morning as you were talking, that was one of the things that I noticed right from the beginning, is that whatever you do, you manage to put yourself in a peak state. And I think when you're able to put yourself in a peak state, either through meditation or moving your body, having some type of physical activity that requires you to get a little sweat going on. And I think visualizing the call, visualizing the outcome, being clear on, for me personally, I like to focus on how I'm going to land the plane. I like to know what my close is. And I want to also know what are the emotions that I'm going to evoke on this call. And I think that's a huge part of it. I think that's a huge part of it, that you're conscious of it. Obviously, your diet, make sure you're drinking a lot of water. And I was listening to a speaker the other day, and they were highlighting Deion Sanders because they just celebrated his 53rd birthday. And they had made a comment to Deion. They said, "Deion, every time we see you, you look so sharp." And Deion stepped back and he started smiling. He says, "Well, one of the things that I learned is that if I feel good, I do good. And if I do good, I dress good. And if I dress good, I play good. And if I play good, they pay good." So one of the things that I think that we have to be conscious of is, how do you feel on a daily basis? Because there is a remedy when you feel bad, and there is a remedy when you feel good, and knowing what that is for you individual, and that's different for everyone.
Yeah, and that's so good. So it's interesting, as you were talking about Deion Sanders, I was reminded of the comment that Michael Jordan made. And of course, Michael Jordan is known to always look sharp. And they said, "Michael Jordan, why do you always look so sharp no matter what you're doing?" And his comment was, "Most people will only meet me once in a lifetime. I want to make sure I create an unforgettable experience." And so how you look, how you dress, clothes do make it the person, because it's more than just appearance, it's a philosophy. And I think, Dan, my comment about what you've just said is, while we're talking about being a super virtual persuader here, listen to what Dan said. It's got to be a routine. You got to have a checklist. When a pilot takes his 747 up into the sky, he has a very specific plan for landing that baby, right? And so that's exactly the kind of routine and discipline we need to be getting into here. So let me ask you, Aldrin, how do you get ready for important video calls?
Yes, actually it goes back to a simple principle that we used to always prepare. I call it the 3 H's of articulation. The first H stands for head, second H stands for heart, and the third H stands for hands. So what does that all mean? Before every important call, whether it's a big or small one, I ask myself, what is it that I want the person I'm speaking to know or think about before I even deliver the message? The second thing I ask myself is, what is it that I want the speaker, the listener I'm speaking to feel? There's a specific feeling I'm trying to get them to evoke, and a specific emotion. And the very last one is, what is it that I want my particular audience to do? What is the action I want them to take immediately after listening to my message? I find that out of all those things, that is the most important. There always has to be a call to action, especially now in the virtual world. Most of the time in a one-on-one basis, the fact that people just were drawn to your charisma or your energy, people would want to see you again, but we don't have that opportunity today. So we have to have absolute clarity on the call to action that we have before every important call that we have. So
good. So it's head, heart, hands, think, feel, do. Perfect. So look, let me go to the next secret to being a super virtual persuader. And this is where we're going to spend a little bit of time, because we now get into the real nuts and bolts of what it means to be a great virtual communicator. And that is lighting yourself up. So if nothing else, I hope you can see that I am lit up, both literally. I've got these bright actors lights directly in front of me. I'm bathed in electronic light, but hopefully you can also feel the internal light, enthusiasm, and just sheer joy of being in front of you. So you want to make it bright. You want to be bright, and you want to make sure your environment is bright. And this is such a basic step, but I meet so many people virtually who look like they could be in a witness protection program, right? It's dark behind them. I can barely see their face. You know, my world and the world out there is dark enough. I don't need it to be darker because of this conversation. So, you know, fundamentally, someone like Jamie indicated she even travels with lights. And, you know, that's going to pose a challenge when we finally fly again, because I don't know what the TSA guy is going to say when he looks at, you know, what are these lights for? But anyway, you want to make it bright. Number two, you want to show yourself from, you know, the kind of torso up, so that people can see you the way they might see you if you were in a meeting with them. If you were in a live meeting with someone, the table wouldn't be up to their neck. The table would be here, or the table would be here. And the more I can see of you, the more expressive you can be. The more I feel like I'm getting a holistic version of you, not just a literal talking head. And then finally, and this again has been mentioned already, look directly at the webcam. So when you are speaking, concentrate on focusing directly at the camera. Now, I have a Logitech 922 that is mounted on the top of my laptop, so I'm looking directly into the camera. Some of you might be using your iPad camera or your laptop camera. Make sure you know where it is, and then when you talk directly into the camera. When the other person's talking, you can look at them and make sure you understand their facial features. But this is one of the challenges. We need to imagine that this webcam, this mono lens that we're staring at, is really the eyes of the person or the people to who we're speaking, so that they feel like we're talking to them directly. Now, for many of you on this call, this might seem a little awkward. It might seem a little counterintuitive. But I want to reiterate something that Dan mentioned, and that this is really about practice. You want to do this so often that it becomes second nature, that it just becomes embedded in your DNA. So on that note, let me ask you, Steve, because what always strikes me about you is whether you're in your studio or whether you're on a lake somewhere in the Rockies, wherever it is, you always seem to find the right light. So Steve, just share with us your guidance around both lighting and also background.
Yeah, all right, I'll give you my lighting tip. So I have a ring light. I use it for different scenarios, but I'll tell you right now, there's no ring light on my face. If I can, I like to go au naturel. So I always want to find the window. So I'm looking behind my laptop is a window, and I'm this far from the window. And I see a lot of times in people's offices, wherever they work, right? I'll just kind of give an example here, live examples. I start to turn, you know, now the window's beside me, and a lot of people here, this is how they're doing their meeting. They're in their office, and the light's behind them. Look, I'm going to show you something. Look behind me. That's a window. Watch this. Look at this. Can you see the difference? So you have to find the window in your office or in wherever you're at, and you have to make sure that behind your laptop is the window. And the natural light for me is always what I feel the most confident with. And as far as the background goes, I'm going to be honest. Like the background could be anything, as long as there's not moving objects in the background, as long as there's not a window behind you, right? You can't go wrong. I prefer not to have a solid white background. It looks like I'm coming live from the hospital or the morgue or wherever I'm coming live from. I like to have a couple things. You notice I turned that light on right there, just a smidge. I just barely touched it, and it looks really bright, right? So maybe you have a little thing on the background. I have my team logo behind me. But really what it is that you could have the best background in the world. If that natural light's not coming directly at you, or you can't compensate with the ring light like Aldrin's done very well, obviously, then it's not going to work.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so, Steve, talk to us a little bit about the cleanliness and the neatness of your background. So, you know, if you look at me, I've got obviously my monitor as my key visual background, and then around the monitor is just plain white, because I want the monitor to be the hero of my background, but I want to be in front of the monitor. And by the way, when I have a monitor behind me, I don't have to worry about just being a thumbnail on a screen. So this is my strategy. Steve, you've gone, Spartan, you've gone neat, and you've got the light on your face. But just talk to us a little bit about the importance of the background to you.
Yeah, the importance of the background to me is very important. But you can get creative. You don't have to spend a lot of money. That background right there, it's a bookshelf with a bunch of my wife's homeschooling stuff for all my kids. So I looked at that bookshelf and I'm like, I want to put my logo on it. So I went to my t-shirt guy. He made me a plastic sheet with Velcro in the corners with my logo on it. So you can like tear it back and get all our kids' books. It cost me $75. Everyone's like, wow, that logo is so crazy. But I did it because behind it is my kids' homeschool stuff. So you just got to get creative. And you know what? I like to co-brand, right? So every once in a while when I'm doing a meeting, I'll just kind of do this, right? And, just kind of do one of these. So, I mean, I have fun with it.
So good. So really, that's the theme of this entire seminar, and that is get creative and have some fun, because God knows we need people to radiate joy in this really challenging time. So, Jamie, let me ask you, when you are not on a ranch in Idaho, but even now, you very carefully sorted your lighting, if not your background, because I know that you ejected the ranch manager while you're having the seminar. That's Jamie's power, by the way. But when you are in control of your background and your lighting, Jamie,
Right.
what would your guidance be?
So at my house, I have 4 kids. I have 4 little kids, all on different Zooms at different times. I have to have really great internet because with homeschooling, they could be on 5 different, lines at the same time. And my home office basically has become the art room / school room / kids Zoom area. So the best place in my house is actually a corner of my room. I have a giant bedroom, but the corner of my room, and it does actually have a window to my back. And I have a beautiful backyard. But like Steve said, it's the worst place to be, having that light at your back, and it makes your face dark. So I do have a ring light for normal Zooms. I have one at the office and I have one at the house. But for when I'm doing most of my Zooms at the house with that window behind me, it's beautiful, but the ring light's not enough. And so I actually got floodlights, 2 floodlights. So these floodlights are not in my eyes. They're up and they light up that entire front of me. I have a light above me, and that's just natural floodlight in my ceiling. But then there's these 2 floodlights that are on a stand, plus my ring light. I adjust depending on where the light is, and it works perfect. And it's totally lit up, and it's I don't know, it's just a great area. And that's the place that the door locks. So I think for the moms and for the parents that have their kids at home still, I know that in California, we're all starting virtual learning. And, our kids know it's one way to prepare, that they know when mom or dad are on a Zoom, that's work. That's, we have to work. But then on those very important Zooms, I will actually plan for them to be on some type of, virtual thing too at the same time. Then when they're done, they know to go out and swim. There's like a whole schedule for the day for the kids if we have a long, conference type thing that we have to be on for several hours.
Right, it's great. And so again, what we're hearing is that a great virtual persuasion or great communication is a function of designing your entire life so that you can make time and have the focus on great conversations. Jamie, thank you very much. Let's go to the third secret to being a great virtual persuader. And this is very simply headline your message. So I want you to imagine that you are the editor of a newspaper. So it could be the LA Times, it could be the Globe and Mail here in Canada, it could be the New York Times, but you got to lead with your most important story. And it's got to be a story that is going to be most relevant and most compelling to the person to whom you're speaking. Which is why, did you notice, as I was going through the opening to our conversation here together, I shared the fact that this is the 10 secrets to becoming a super virtual persuader. And then I've mentioned that phrase over and over again. So number 1, earn the right to be heard. The real competition is not the competition, it's the noise. And you and I need to be the signal, not the static in the noise. Number 2, focus on what the other person wants. So I know, based on our briefing, based on all the feedback I've received, that everyone who's on this call wants to be as effective virtually as you are in person. And then number 3, communicate the core benefit that you deliver, your unique value proposition, the one thing that only you can deliver, your voice, your impact. So in my case, and hopefully you're feeling this, I provide people with the insights that inspire them into action that creates the results that they really desire. And then I unpack that depending on who I'm talking to. So earn the right to be heard, focus on what other people want, and then communicate your core benefit. Number 4, I want you to think about as you're walking folks through your conversation, make sure that you've got a very clear narrative. Make sure that you start at the beginning, you move through the middle, and you close it at the end. So frame the conversation, go through the key body of the conversation, and then close on a high. And we're going to talk about getting a call to action. You want to talk the other person's language. Now, this is why we are featuring your leaders on this call, because they literally talk in your language. They live in your world. But hopefully, as you listen to me, I've immersed myself in your reality so I can talk the kind of language that you may resonate with. And then, as Alden said at the very beginning of this conversation, keep it tight. A rule of thumb is you got to move twice as fast, but you cannot rush it. You cannot act in haste. You're the one that needs to be disciplined. You need to be tight. But I will tell you that if you can engage the other person, then it will go on longer. So I always smile to myself when I earn 15 minutes of someone's time, and then we get to 15 minutes, and then I ask a simple question. I go, how is your time? Do you have a couple more minutes to talk about the key issues? And if I have allowed the other person to participate, they've always got more time. If I've engaged in too much of a monologue, I usually run out of time. Okay, so here's number 5. And I want to remind you that you will be getting all these slides. So hopefully what you can see with the slides behind me is that I'm endeavoring to do something a little different. I commissioned an illustrator to do these quasi superhero figures, because all of us in some shape, manner, or form is an everyday superhero serving a range of different stakeholders. So you want to dramatize your data. You want to make people want to look at the slides. You cannot numb them into unconsciousness by just a series of tables and graphs. So you got to make it topical to the extent that you can bring in something that has happened that day or something that is relevant to the conversation, then do so. Number 2, sharpen the visual appeal so that people actually want to look at the screen. And again, this is whether you have a slide behind you or whether you have, in Steve's case, a logo. And then be single-minded per slide. Don't try and achieve too much on a slide. Remember, it's one point, one communication, one impact at a time. So on that note, I want to ask my panel members here what their guidance is around the presentations of slides and data. And Dan, let me begin with you, because we had this conversation a couple of days ago. So Dan, when it comes to actually presenting slides or presenting the data, what would your guidance be in terms of how do you make it interesting? How do you compel or at least encourage the other person to actually pay attention? Dan, I think you're on mute.
Thanks for that question, Mike. First of all, I think that preparation is the key. So whatever topic that I'm going to talk about, first of all, I want to make sure that the stats that I have are current stats, and they're actually things that people can actually relate to, that deals with their current conditions. And I think a lot of times we have to make sure that the information that we're using is information that can be applied now. I want to also make sure that I have a start time and I have also an end time to the meeting. And then that way I can be very, very clear on what is it that I want to achieve. And whatever those slides that I use, I want to also incorporate stories, because I think people remember stories more, effective stories to illustrate a point. And that's what I use, and that's what I encourage my leaders to use to be more effective when they're using a slide presentation.
So good. So I love that, Dan. So again, it goes to discipline and it goes to freshness. It's like when you and I go to a restaurant and we order a salad, or we order, you know, I'm a big fan of Japanese food, and when I get my avocado roll, I want to make sure that that thing looks like it has just been prepared. If it's got a little brown around the edge or it looks a little wilted, you know, they shouldn't be serving me that. And so this is so easy just to go online, to make sure that you're relevant, raise something that has even been in the newspaper or online that very morning so that people see it as immediate. So Dan, thanks, thank you for that. Aldrin, what is your guidance around presentation of slides and data? How do you keep it interesting?
How do I keep it interesting when it comes to slides and data? Obviously, as long as it's compliant, compliant, approved, and all those things. But one thing I want to just mention is just that's a little bit different, just not so I don't repeat anything that Dan there mentioned, which was less is more. So if you are going to put anything visually, the less you have up there is actually more powerful. Something that I've studied a little while ago is actually Steve Jobs. Whenever he actually rolled out the next new thing to its entire, I guess, shareholders, he always just had one word up on a massive screen, just one word. There's no explanation to it. There were no visual, it was just one word. And the one thing I caught there is that it stirred the imagination of those who were reading that particular word. So I guess my one tip for making it visually appealing is if you're going to put up a photo or a message, the less is better. But the idea is if the person who's looking at this particular image, does it stir their imagination? By doing that, now you can input the stories into it and it'll make them actually put a mental image to the words that you're articulating to them.
It's a great comment. And let me ask you, Aldrin, so let's say you've got the one word up there, or as you've seen, what I've been doing with my slides is 3 basic points, or, you know, just a single question on the slide. That means that you've got to be that much more prepared, because you can't just read the points on the slide, or you can't just go through it line item by line item. So talk to me a little bit about what does that require from you as a presenter if you've just got the one image or the one thought or the one symbol on the screen?
That's a great question, actually. Everything goes back to the word practice. I once heard, like, there's a book that I read that requires 10,000 hours to master anything. 10,000 hours. And my mentality behind practice has always been this one key factor. You don't practice until you get it right. You practice until you can't get it wrong. And by doing that, you're always going to be in a position where you're always prepared, regardless of whatever is thrown at you.
So look, again, that's another absolute keeper. You don't practice so you always get it right. You practice so that you just cannot get it wrong. And I'll tell you, look, just like you, I've had to climb a steep learning curve in terms of virtual communication. And the presenter that you see before you today was not the same guy back in March, I will tell you. In fact, when I did a session like this, I would have a teleprompter in front of me. I'd be terrified that I wouldn't get the words right. And then I had a major wake-up call. What happened was I had an audience of 2,000 people and my teleprompter blacked out. I just had a malfunction. And I was forced to go deep and then talk the way I'm talking to you now. And that said to me, it's okay if you miss 1 or 2 points, but you really have to come across as authentic and human. And once you get to that level of practice, where you know that even if you're bad, you're still going to be good, that gives you a whole nother level of confidence. But that doesn't come without practice. And I will tell you, just based on all the conversations I've had with the folks on this call, what you see in front of you are people who make it look easy, but they've worked very, very hard to make it look very, very easy. Which takes us to the next point. And this is really, I think, crucial to what we're going to be really spending some time on right now. And that is animate your style, right? Make sure that you come across as passionate, because I know you would not be on this call if you didn't feel deeply both about the work, the content, and being of service to the other person. So you want to act your role. You want to imagine who your favorite actor is or who your favorite performer is. And then you want to maybe step into those shoes and see the space in front of the webcam as your stage. So right now I'm sitting here in front of you. This is my stage. Number 2, my natural style is to be energized, but I'm amping it up even further. You know, Steve and I share a common hyperkinetic style. You know, Jamie is more moderated. Aldrin might be a little more understated, and Dan is just going to be deliberate. Dan is just going to come at you. Dan is going to give you exactly what you need. So, so we all have different approaches, but you really want to make sure that the other person is in no doubt that being in front of the webcam, talking to them, is the one place in the world that you really want to be at that moment. And then finally, and I'm sure you can tell, you want to turn up your volume. So I am talking to you now maybe 20 or 25% louder than I would normally talk if the two of us were in a conversation. In fact, it sounds even a little awkward to me. But what I know is when I talk loudly, number one, if it's too loud, you can just turn down your volume. But number two, I'm going to radiate authority. And number three, if I talk loud, I can talk at the right pace without stumbling over or without mumbling or without trying to erode my words. So talk a little louder than you would normally talk. And what you will find is you enhance your clarity, you enhance your authority, and the other person is also compelled to listen. And what sounds overly loud to you might seem exactly right for the other person. And remember, when you're talking through a webcam, the webcam acts as a natural suppressant, a natural dampener. So you might think you're overdoing it. You might think you're being over the top. But by the time it gets translated onto the other person's laptop, you know, through a micro screen, and they might even be watching you on their phone, you cannot overdo it. And by the way, if you're going to err on the side of being over animated rather than under animated. And so really, I think this is a great place to get the insights of panelists. So Steve, you're a guy I know who's thought about this deeply. What would your advice on body language be?
Oh, that's a great question. So, you know, you kind of covered it. I'll overlap on it, but I mean, body language. I mean, we talked about it earlier. You got to be square. You want to be looking in. You want to be looking in, obviously, into the camera for the important points. But you got to remember that everything needs to be exaggerated. So your movements, your head nods. Now, when somebody else is speaking to me, I'm not necessarily going to be looking in the camera because I want to be watching their body language on Zoom. So when you're talking, you look in to the camera, but when somebody's speaking, you want to make sure, yes, it's good to like go back and forth, but I'm watching body language because you need to over exaggerate things like your head nods. And if you agree with their point, or sometimes on Zoom, if you're going to, like when you're face to face, you can kind of almost interrupt each other in a conversation, and it's not awkward. On Zoom, it only picks up one audio at a time. So when two people talk at the same time, it's like, what? Sorry, what? So instead of like being like, yeah, good point. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, great. What I do is I just do exaggerated head nods and eye movements. I'm like this. I get close and I go, right? And so as they're talking, right, they're looking in and I'm head nodding and I'm going like this. And this head nod right here, this is extremely exaggerated, but because it's on Zoom, right, it doesn't seem so amplified. So that's my one little tip for you, Mike.
So good. And, you know, you brought it all together with the word exaggerate. Now, Steve, just quickly, what's the risk of coming across as over-exaggerating or hamming it up too much?
I mean, the risk is that, technically speaking, you could come across as a little bit too excited. But let me give you a tip I got a long time ago. You don't need to be Mike Lipkin. You don't need to be Dan Charlotte. You don't need to be Ed Milet. You don't need to be Aldrin. You need to be an excited you. Be an excited you. So whoever you are as a person, you were all created by the same creator, right? So we were all created equal. People know you as a 4 on the excitement scale. Show up as a 5.2, and that's enough. So don't overcook the goose. Be an excited you. Get a bit more engaged as you would, and you'll be great.
Perfect. Someone once said to me, rather be a first-rate version of yourself than a second-rate version of someone else. So this does mean you got to find your voice and then express it. Dan, seeing as Steve referenced you, Dan, what would your advice be on body language? Seeing as you may have a different style to Steve and myself. Again, you might be on mute.
I think for me personally, I try to remain, obviously body language is extremely, extremely important and you need to be conscious of it. But I think sometimes when you're too conscious and you're too careful and you're trying to use too many tactics that most people have gone through sales training, I think you have to understand your audience. Because if you're talking to me and you're using natural sales tactics, I already know what you're doing when you're doing it. But I think your ability to be organic, and your ability to be authentic, your ability to be real. I think there's two types of speakers. There's one speaker that communicates to the head. And when people are listening, they're going, yeah, that makes sense. And there's another speaker when they're communicating to the heart. And people go, man, that's how I feel. So I think that depending on where you at in the conversation, obviously, if the rapport building, you've connected with them, your ability to fluctuate your voice, know when to drop your voice, drop your tone, when to lean into the camera, but don't do it to a point where you become very robotic. And I think that you have to be careful on not be careful, but you have to be conscious of who your audience is and who you're communicating with.
So good. And Dan, let me ask you another question that's tangentially related to what you've just said. But, Steve and I are sitting here. Mark is also dressed up. We've got our dress shirts on. I would wear a jacket, but these lights are pretty hot, so I haven't got the jacket on. But every time I see you, Dan, you've got a polo shirt on. And this is the 4th time that I'm seeing you. So do you dress down on purpose, although it's obviously a very smart polo shirt that probably costs more than my dress shirt, but is that a specific style that you consciously pursue?
First of all, that's a good assessment, Mike.
Well, of course.
No, I think I want to represent the current time. I think we are a current time where people are working at home, and I want people to feel more comfortable because I don't want people to feel like they have to put on a dress shirt and shorts to get on a Zoom with me. I want to be as real as possible when I'm communicating with them. And obviously whatever attire you decide to wear, I just want it to be you. I mean, like I'm not going to put on a shirt and a jacket and a tie in my home library and sit down and have a conversation with you when I would wear what you would usually wear.
Right. So fantastic, Dan. Thank you. And I want everyone just to understand that Dan is dressing for the times, and his mission is to make the other person feel comfortable simply by the kind of shirt that he's wearing. Whereas my mission is to always look smart because I might not be able to pull that off, right? But anyway, all right, let's go to the 7th secret. Now, look, hopefully you've seen us do this since 3 o'clock, and it's amazing how time flies while you're having fun. But this really is crucial to everything else we talk about, and that is to listen like you mean it. What do I mean? Well, number one, make sure that you look interested. When I look at oftentimes the thumbnail staring back at me, or when I'm doing a one-on-one, or maybe one on a few people on a Zoom call, folks don't look interested. In fact, I can see that they look distracted, understandably. We heard Jamie talk about the fact that her kids are at home. We know that there are a range of other things happening. We've got multiple digital devices in front of us. So if you are the host of the call, if you are the one who's endeavoring to communicate and connect, you have to demonstrate just how invested you are in that call. You want to look interested, and then the questions that follow have got to demonstrate how interested you actually are. So if you look at number 2, and this is something that Aldrin said, you want to ask questions, but you want to ask questions that open the other person up. And oftentimes when I ask a really good question, someone will respond like this: I never thought of it that way before. Or, wow, I don't know, I haven't even considered that. So when you ask a question that gets someone to challenge their existing way of thinking, then you're opening up the possibility to bring them a new range of opportunities. So if you do nothing else as a result of this call, go looking for great questions. invent some of your own, take them for a test run, see the kind of results you get. And you will know if it's a great question because the other person will want to talk and talk and talk, and then they will invest, and then they will recruit and recruit and recruit. So the final point that I have on my slide here is repeat and replay. So you've seen me use this technique throughout the session where I will repeat to someone either what they've said or my commentary around what they've said, but most importantly, I'm going to replay what I've just heard in my words. So if Dan shares with me why he's wearing his polo shirt, I want to absolutely have Dan know that I get it. Not only do I get it, but I get the genius of what that move represents, the authenticity of it, the desire to make the other person comfortable. So ultimately, through your listening, you want the other person to feel validated. And by the way, and what I'm about to say is the most important thing I can say to you the entire afternoon. So whatever you are doing, I need your attention just for this statement. The way we listen to others becomes their opinion of themselves. Let me say that again. The way we listen to others becomes their opinion of themselves. So if I listen to you like you are the most interesting person in the world, that's how you feel. On the other hand, if you seem distracted, if you seem disinterested, if you seem frustrated, agitated, or even irritated, then that's how I'm going to feel. So listen to others the way you want to make them feel. So let's talk about demonstrating listening on video. And I know that Jamie is a great listener because this is now my 4th conversation with her. She's a great question asker. She's a great commentary provider. But Jamie, just share with me your insights or share with the audience your insights in terms of how you demonstrate your listening on video.
Well, I think the first thing is that you have to cut out all your distractions. I've seen people texting, like they think because it's out of the camera's sight that it's okay, like they're texting, you know, they're whatever. And I just think if you should do everything the same as if you were at the kitchen table. So you would prepare your slides. So I have all my slides prepared. They're downloaded in the iCloud drive. If I'm going to go onto a website, it's already in the website URL. Everything's there. No distractions that way. But also I've locked the door of where I'm going to be at. So no kids are running in because they're excited about something. And then I've also heard people complain that they felt like that there was someone else in the room that maybe was feeding them. So here's the deal. If in WFG we have trainees and we have trainers, we usually have 2 people, and that's okay. But I recommend that trainee be another person on the Zoom on a different line so that they know that they're there, and tell them the trainee is here listening, not that they're secretly, you know, out of sight of the camera and you're being distracted by that other person. So give them your full undivided attention. And then right now with COVID, there's a lot of times where people will divulge stuff to you about their financial hardship or how hard it is with their kids at home, at school, and you just lean in and you're like, oh my gosh, I know, I feel the same way, or I have so many clients in the same situation. It's so hard right now. And, empathize with them and, care about them. And, honestly, you guys, when you help people get what they want, you get what you want. And so every appointment, whether that be with a trainee, a client, anything, if fast starting someone, you should always go into that appointment with what can you do for them? How can you help them? How can you help them make a breakthrough in their life? And so if you really have that come from, that they know that you're there listening, care about them, and want to help them improve their business or their life financially, they'll feel that. And so, and again, that energy you have to bring through that camera, you have to exaggerate it, like they said, or just make sure that the passion is coming through, the conviction is coming through, that they know that you believe in what you're talking about and that you're there 100% to serve them every time.
Beautiful. And I hope that everyone can see, Jamie, that you are fully on right now and you are manifesting your stage persona, but everything is authentic from you. Everything is because you genuinely care. And so in those moments where you express your empathy, it doesn't come across as disingenuous. It comes across as something that's coming from the heart. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Aldrin, share with us your insight as it relates to how you demonstrate your listening on video.
Absolutely, Mike. Just to share something different, just so we're not repeating ourselves here. Everyone's pretty much shared most of the things I wanted to deliver. Hopefully, I was hoping you would ask me first. But in addition to that, one of the things I want to deliver is the mindset behind listening. Many people, I've been married for 5 years, and this is always this. Anyone who's married can relate to this. Many people listen to respond versus listening to understand. And I think that key message there will allow you to immediately, that mindset will allow you to listen better. And now and because we're in a virtual world, your voice, the sound of your voice has to be congruent with how you understand what it is that you're listening to. The depth or the low tone in your voice means that you've been impacted with that. A high pitch means that you're excited to what it is that you've been listening to. It's not a coincidence. I was studying this. This is just a side analysis, but did you know that females, when they're around someone that they're attracted to or they find genuinely interesting, they have a higher pitched tone in their voice? And I started studying that because I started noticing that literally all the women in my life who have ever interacted with me sound like Batman. So when I thought about that, I said, man, that's pretty accurate in that aspect of it. So listening, it has a lot to do with the mindset. And the final tip I'll give is by far the most beautiful sound to a human being's ear. I'll repeat that again, in case many of you missed it. The most beautiful sound to a human being's ear is the sound of their own name. So if you repeat their name throughout in any appropriate sentence that you deliver, it makes them feel special and they know that you're listening to them.
Yeah, so good. So everything you've said is extraordinary, specifically around listen to understand, not just listen so you can respond in a smart fashion. And the one thing I would say, Aldrin, in the spirit of coaching, is you began this comment off by saying, well, I'm going to repeat things. And I just want to say to everyone on this call, it's good to repeat the important things. You want to repeat the main thing over and over and over again because the other person may not have been listening in the first place. The other person has got so much going on in their mind that you want to repeat things over and over again, but make sure that you are repeating the right things. Okay, fantastic. So let's go to the third last point here, and this is inevitable. I'm sharing with you right now, something is going to go awry. And in fact, just as I hope I haven't put the kibosh on this call, but you know what, in more than 1 out of 2 cases, something happens. You know, there's a technological glitch. You know, I forget what I wanted to say. It doesn't come out the right way. Just keep your composure. In fact, even make light of it. Sometimes if I pause for too long, I tell the other person that I was just really making sure that my next point was as great as I can make it. If there's a technological issue, then I just go, well, you know, the gods of the internet may not be with us this specific minute, but they're going to come back any moment now. And then focus on the next point. You know, in any game, if you mess up a point, if you strike out, if you don't get the basket, if you don't score the touchdown, and you start to obsess about this mistake you made, you know that the rest of that game is not going to go well. So it really is about knowing that setbacks are going to happen, and that's how we build toughness. That's how we build resilience. And the other thing that I'll tell you is that people are remarkably understanding of setbacks. We cannot control what's happening to the bandwidth. We cannot control storms that might be happening in Cedar Rapids. We cannot control when our kids need us most. And so right now, you want to trust your humanity, and you want to trust the humanity of the people to whom you're speaking. And in fact, I'll tell you, the other day I had a conversation with an individual. It was about a serious project. And his 4-year-old daughter came in and just sat on his lap. And she made that whole meeting, and she was just totally unconscious and totally didn't care the fact that we were talking about how to change the universe. All she wanted was her dad's attention for that moment. And afterwards, what I said to him is I said he should arrange in every call for his daughter to walk into the room and sit on his lap, because it really humanized him. So I just want to say to you that setbacks are going to happen. Don't be consumed by them. The only pitch that matters is the next one. All right, here's number 9. And that is follow up, follow up, follow up. We've heard the desire and the need to create action. As we heard from Aldrin right up front, it's about head, it's about heart, it's about hands. What's the other person going to do? So after each call, get feedback. What I tend to do is I do a little survey monkey. I do 2 or 3 questions. I know that WFG has a survey immediately after this call. I'll have a debriefing with the team, but that happens on every single call with me. I want to make sure that I get feedback in terms of how did I do? Sometimes I think I did well, I didn't do so well. Sometimes I think I didn't do well, I did well. But the only way I know is for the other person to share with me directly. Ask the folks to whom you're speaking for guidance. Make them a co-partner, not just a client. Ask them what you could have done differently. Ask them how you could improve it. Ask them what they do in similar situations. Make them feel like they're equal partners with you in this business called life. And then finally, acknowledge and appreciate. The greatest gift anyone can give us is their time. And frankly, you and I are in competition with everything else for people's time. So if someone gives you their time, you want to really demonstrate your gratitude for their time and that you're going to give them a high return on that time. So I'm just curious, Dan, just your follow-up, because when we did the briefing just a couple of days ago, Dan shared with me just how he has turned this into a science. And so Dan, if you can just share with us just a little bit around how you quantify the impact of your conversations.
Yes, first of all, thanks a lot, Mike. I mean, that was awesome explanation of the follow-up. And I think the follow-up is extremely important, and it should be strategic. It should be extremely strategic. So if I'm doing an appointment with someone, I've already have the follow-up appointment pre-scheduled on exactly when I'm going to meet with them following the phone call, and I never leave the phone call. I never leave the Zoom appointment without having a follow-up Zoom set. And I think one of the mistakes that a lot of times we make is we go on the Zoom, we do the appointment, and then we leave it up in the air and then try to do a follow-up phone call to set up another Zoom. So I think your preparation is extremely important in that, your mental preparation. And also with the feedback, I think just as important as feedback is also feed forward. And what I mean by feed forward is that a lot of times feedback, someone is giving us constructive criticism on what do we need to do to improve. But I might know someone else that's actually very strong in that area. And what I want them to do is I want to give them to give me feed forward to tell me exactly what do I need to be, where I need to be to reach where I want to go. So feedback is very important, but also make sure that you're giving people feed forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dan. So look, let me go through the final point here, and then I'm going to ask each one of the panelists just to wrap up the call so far. And this is the whole concept around practice. Now, you'll notice over here that I talk about practice being proficient, not perfect. Because however good you are today, just remember you're a beginner in this whole new game of virtual persuasion. There's not a single individual that I'm talking to who feels like they've really mastered this because it's all so new. So 3 steps for you to take. Number 1, find your role models. So for me, I watch a number of presenters. I'm a big fan of a TD Jakes. I'm a big fan of a Grant Cardone. I'm a big fan now of Ed Milet. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Fallon. I watch these folks. I watch the way they handle the camera. I watch the way they handle their shows from their homes rather than from fancy offices. Number 2, own your stage. Remember, Shakespeare said all of life is a stage and we just the players. We have our exits and our entrances. So just whatever your stage is, whatever that space is, own it. Make sure that you are coming across as someone who's truly mastered that situation the best way you know how. And then finally, most importantly, make every meeting count. You know, there's an ancient Japanese saying that says, ichigo, ichie. And what that really means is one life, one meeting, And what that really means is every meeting only happens once in a lifetime. Make it so memorable that the other person wants to have another meeting with you. So those are the 10 secrets to becoming a super virtual persuader. And I now want to just go through each of the panelists and just ask them just to share their insights around how they're becoming proficient and some of the ways that they hope to sharpen the saw. So Steve, let me begin with you.
Oh, sorry about that. I love that. You know, I think it's super important what you talked about, and you know, I like the whole theme of kind of finding you within the game. You got to find you within the game, and you got to be you. And you know, there's going to be different things that you take from different role models. And you talked about Ed Milet. I take what I take from Ed. I have a lot of other mentors that I take energy from. I've looked up to Jamie for a long time, and Dan. So you know, I've always told my team, you need to be the advocate, not always the expert, and you need to believe in what you're saying, and you know, and you got to rock it. I mean, simple as that.
Now, Steve, and look, I'm going to say this in front of 5,000 people. I know we're going through a real challenging time, where the world is, but you seem to be having so much fun.
Yeah, you know why I'm having fun, Mike? Because WFG, this is my game, this is my sport. And you know, sports evolves and rules change, and but the game never changes. This isn't what I do. This is who I am. And the fact that I get to wake up every morning and play my game and do with people that I love and go out and make an impact on people. I mean, man, if you can't have fun at that, what are you waiting for?
So good, so good, excellent. Thank you, Steve. Jamie.
Awesome. Well, I guess the advice that I would give everybody is to sell the dream. You know, our number one product, we sell so many amazing products and we help families in so many ways, but our number one product always has been, always will be, to sell the dream. And so you have to just like light yourself on fire with enthusiasm and just pour out in every appointment, because every appointment, you guys, if they're hearing it for the first time, you may have heard it or said it thousands of times, but for them, this is the very first time they learned the rule of 72, or they saw this incredible opportunity that could be the life, you know, that changes their life. This could be the thing that changes everything for their family. Oops. And so I would just say, sell the dream. Another tip I would give you is that everything that you're learning, you know, every meeting, you probably learn something different. Especially now, like Zoom's changing things, and you learn how to maybe put the poll at the end of your meeting or whatever. And so you're learning different things. And so you got to now, in WFG, you guys know, duplication is the name of the game. So it's not that you're getting better at this, that you have to make sure you're duplicating this to everyone in your team. And as far as models, and it might sound weird that I'm using this, but I think on this call, I think everybody has a role model in Monty Home. I know everybody loves Monty and they've learned a ton from him over the years. But Monty used to say that every appointment, every meeting, his goal wasn't necessarily to get a recruit. It wasn't necessarily to get a sale. It was that when he left that appointment, he left that meeting, that prospect would say, I've never met someone with more conviction and more belief in what they did than that dude does about what he does, right? And so every appointment, every Zoom call, every meeting, just pour your heart into what you do. And you know, I think it's easy for me because I love it. I did a big Zoom for like 500 nurses. And some of them, you know, were wearing masks on the COVID floor and worried about going home to their kids. And I got off that call, you know, I was in tears. And I did another call, and it was for a bunch of people that were totally thought they were well off, you know, financially or whatever. And they didn't know the basics. They didn't know the basics of, you know, dollar cost averaging and, you know, basic financial things. And it was so fun to teach them and to answer their questions. And so guys, I love what we do. I love, you know, whether that be in front of a client or virtually, to change a family's life. You don't know if the person that you're sitting in front of in this meeting is your next Monty Home, your next Steve Holbrook, your next Dan Charlier, your next Ed Milet. You don't know. And so just make sure that you're reaching for their heart, and every single appointment that you're reaching for their heart, you're doing your very best, you're well prepared, and that you just pour it out. And you don't know who's going to be your next champion, and who's a dud or who's a stud, but every single time could completely change that family's life forever.
Love it. Love it. And by the way, treat everyone as a stud, even if they're a dud, because they could become studs.
Yep.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Aldrin, thank you. Thank you very much, Jamie. Aldrin, final words from you.
Yeah, I guess if it's the subject of, role models, there's 3 in particular in the virtual world. The first one is just overall effectiveness. I have an MD in our base shop, actually, who's also a photographer. He just made our entire operation since COVID started a lot more effective, in our ability to just do this a lot more effective. People are receiving us better, so that's a role model right now for me. Another role model is I am 100% certain that out of the thousands of people on this call, there's a few on here that think, I don't know if I can do it. I promise you, write it down. Old dogs can learn new tricks, okay? Old dogs can learn new tricks. And that is so apparent. One of my mentors right now, his name's Carl Meldrum. He's completely adopted the virtual world. And I just see him almost on a daily basis, and what he's doing to constantly improve. And he's already financially independent many times over, but he's consistently improving. So if an individual who's been in the game over 20 years is constantly improving, you can too. And the very last message I'll share with all of you is now is absolutely the right time. I've studied this company. I've studied the leaders, even on this call. Some of my role models are the people on this call right now. These WFG legends right now on this call, I'm going to take myself out of that. The legends here are the Holbrooks, the Villalobos, and the Charliers on this call. They became legends in this company in a crisis similar to this, or a variation of that. The timing is now. It's never going to get any better than this. I promise you, 3 to 4 or 5 years from today, new legends in this company are going to be born. So I'll leave that with you.
Beautiful. Just exquisitely articulated. Thank you, Aldrin. So, Dan, I'm going to hand off to you to close us out just with your thoughts around becoming proficient, and any role models or any other insights that you can share with us.
Thanks a lot. First of all, I piggyback on all the leaders. I think those are all great points. But one of the things for me, being in WFG for 22 years, and it's funny as Aldrin refers us to legends, but I really believe that you could be a legend and a rookie in your mind. And I think for me, one of the things that I saw in 2008, we saw our model go through a recession, and then, because we've always talked about being recession proof. And so we experienced that, and our company grew in those eras. So when we came through a couple months ago in March, and we hit the pandemic, and that was something that none of us had experienced before. And one of the things that I saw our model now 5-6 months into it. I saw our model is also pandemic proof. So one of the things I think that's really powerful now is that our virtual format system meeting our brick and mortar business format system. So I see a lot of the leaders that have pivoted. They've harnessed the virtual format system. So there's when you look at the 6 steps in our business format system, now it's that, how do we do that virtually? And the last couple of thousand people that got recruited in my hierarchy, and over 87,000 in WFG, they've entered the virtual world. And so they're seeing a virtual space. So I think a lot of the leaders now, we're looking at people in the virtual world. I had a conversation with a leader the other day, and he was having a challenge harnessing the Zooms and the virtual. He says, I don't know how people are going to keep their attention span on Zoom. I said, well, let me ask you a question. What if Netflix had that same idea? I said, because people binge watch for hours on Netflix. So if you become creative in it and you're willing to harness it, I think it's going to be, we're going to look back at this pandemic, and we're all going to be like, oh my God, we learned so much of what can be done during these times. So you got to harness it. And you got to have a good time with it.
Wow. So look, I think that's a fabulous note to close on. Dan, and that is hopefully we have simulated a Netflix quality experience for all of you on this call. Certainly, in my experience, this 80 minutes has just flown by. I think I'm inspired. I've learned so much on this call. I hope you've learned so much on this call. I want to thank WFG for setting this session up. I want to thank all of you for being part of this program. I want to thank the panelists. I want to just remind you that on August 27th, we've got a great masterclass on how you can become a client and a prospect magnet. And then on September 10, we've got a great program around how do you build great teams and become a masterful recruiter. So on that note, Mark, let me hand back to you and I'll let you wrap it up and take it from there. They're super cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks to all of our free leaders, Jamie, Dan, Aldrin. A pleasure as usual. Steve, unfortunately, had to drop off the call, folks, so just a heads up there. We had so much powerful content here. As Mike mentioned, it has evaporated. Time has just flown by like crazy, but I know that all this information was so powerful. Our chat, our Q&A, and social media has been exploding with comments and questions, and I know a lot of the questions have been addressed by all the information that was presented today. But you know, what I get out of this is that, you know, perfection is not a destination. It's a continual journey, right? And as we all go through this process, there's always little things that you can always improve upon. Like, look at my background here. I mean, I have a nice collected background. I'm dressed nice, but I got my light shining off of my background here. So that's going to be the next thing I try to tweak to step up my game. Mike, you have the same thing. You didn't have a TV before. You have a TV now. I know everybody can probably speak to the same thing. It's never perfect. You keep making it more and more perfect. Think about professional broadcasters. They change their set. There's no perfect set. You just keep tweaking it and improving your game and upping your game. And I think everything that we've shared today is going to make for a WFG that is going to be more powerful. They're going to look better. You're going to sound better. You're going to be more convincing. I think everyone's a super virtual persuader after today's session. Now, unfortunately, we're running out of time, like I mentioned, for the Q&A, but I am going to pass it to Rick Williams, our president of WFG Canada, for some important words. Rick, are you there?
I am, and thanks very much, Mark. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you to all the panelists and Mike, Steve, Aldrin, Jamie, Dan. What a fantastic job. Another fantastic session. And I just want to remind everybody that this is part of a journey of 3 different seminars over the next couple of weeks. So please stay tuned for that. And I just want to again say thank you to the panelists and just remind everybody that this presentation is going to be circulated out. So if you didn't catch all the nuggets, it's going to be sent out to you over email and through the recording as well. I also want to remind everybody that we're having a fantastic year. 2020, even with all the pandemic and all the challenges economically, WFG is knocking it out of the park. Last month, we had our biggest month in recruiting ever. So I just want to say, this is your time. This is WFG's time. And hopefully you're building your business at the same speed as WFG is. And that's fantastic. And I also want to close off quickly before I pass over to you, Mark, to thank all our platinum providers, IA, Equitable Life, Avari, as well as CPP. They help finance and support this event. Financially, we wouldn't be able to put these types of events on. And so I just wanted to reach out and recognize this group. So basically, I want to pass it back to you, Mark. I want to thank everybody. Thanks for everyone being on this call, and pass it over to you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Rick. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Don't forget, this is the first of 3 sessions for this series, WFG Masterclass. Our next sessions are going to be on August 27th and September 10th. They are both Thursdays. Make sure you register for each session. Each session's registration is unique and individual, so make sure you're registered for the following 2 sessions that we have. If you've registered for today's, you will still probably need to register for the other 2 if you haven't already done so, so please check into that. And our most common question, of course, today was, where can I get the recording of this presentation? This presentation will be posted in the training center, which is accessed through My WFG. That should be there within the next day or so. And of course, please watch the play card for further information on these webinars and of course, everything about WFG. Log into My WFG and check your emails on a regular basis. Stay safe and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.